Right, thank you very much. I'm Roger Bamkin, I'm the chair of Wikimedia UK. Jan kindly said that I work for them. I don't work for them, I'm a volunteer.
I'm sorry.
We only have one employee who started last Saturday. The theme of our organisation is imagine a world in which everybody has got access to all the information in the world. That's one of the things that we're working towards. It's going to take us some time to do this. I'm going to talk here. First thing I was asked to talk about, I was talked about Wiki Loves Monuments, which is an odd subject really, because the map of Wiki Loves Monuments looks like this. You can see all of ones that are highlighted there in red, France and Spain and Portugal. These are all collaborating in a project across Europe to take pictures of famous monuments, to geotag them, to add all the metadata to them, to load those documents up onto the Wikipedia in order that other people can have those as a resource to write articles about, and just as a method of people being able to travel around Europe and find pictures of things. The UK decided not to take part in this particular collaboration. And this brings out two of the themes that we're meant to be discussing here, one of which is quality and the other one is audience participation. And this is really the reason why we decided not to take part. In 2010, Wikimedia Netherlands did a pilot and loaded about 12,500 images. It was a very good project and it was amazingly scalable. By the next year, they were able to, this year they've managed to get 100,000 free images loaded up into Commons. Why didn't the UK take part? Well, it would be a good thing to do because it's fun to crowdsource. It's great fun to actually join together, produce some information. But when we looked at the information we got, we'd already had a project running in the UK that wasn't a wiki project, but it was called Geograph, and it planned to take a photograph of every square kilometre of Britain. It's actually done 80% of Britain, so there's only some areas of forests and some areas of lakes that haven't actually got pictures of them. And most areas of Britain have got a photograph taken of all the major monuments in that area already taken. So that was one of the reasons why we didn't want to do it, was because we thought we might already have those pictures, and we've got those pictures and we haven't got time to load them up. They're all very good pictures, they're quality pictures with the metadata and they're geotagged, and we haven't got time to use them, so why would we load some more? The other reason was we knew that the government had got a large database of monument pictures already for the United Kingdom. And therefore, if we were going to go and do some project one weekend where we did a small area of London, by the time we'd finished, we'd have a small database, and the problem of actually joining that into the larger database when we got hold of it would be quite a large problem. People in Europeana are spending £149 million trying to join together a few databases. It is a large problem to join together databases. Wikipedia is peer-reviewed. We wanted to improve the quality. One of the things we're trying to do is to actually move up Wikipedia. When it started, which was about 10 years ago, basically you were asked to just type in whatever you knew. If you knew that Vienna was the capital of Austria, please tell us, because that's something we haven't got information on. But if you've noticed, the quality of Wikipedia has gone up to the level now where you really need to be a pretty good expert in a particular subject area to be able to contribute cleverly. So what we're trying to do is to introduce curators and librarians. And the reason why we're interested in curators and librarians is because we're peer-reviewed. If we want to improve it, we need to improve the qualities of our peers. So if we've got librarians and curators who are involved in the process of writing Wikipedia articles, there's a good chance we're actually going to improve the quality of them. I've got some images here that I thought would be useful to actually show you. First thing I went to look for was the Austrian National Library. This is the photograph on the left that shows you of the Austrian National Library. I'm not sure that's correct, but it's not the building I came in this morning. But that's the picture. If you actually go and look on Commons, that's the one that actually shows you of the Austrian National Library. Veronica, is that? It is? Okay. Right. On the right-hand side, I went and looked on Wikipedia because I thought, well, if I'm talking to you guys, I ought to find out what your library is like on Wikipedia. And I looked down there, and there's a wonderful article there on the Codex Vindobonensis Mexicanus. I don't know why they look to me like pictures of The Simpsons, but they're wonderful pictures If you look at these pictures, it's available in 5 languages, but not German. And I find that very odd that you'd have something in the Austrian National Library, it's available in 5 different languages, but for some odd reason, not in German. So one of the things we're going to do is creating change. People have actually been using Wikipedia as an example of crowdsourcing. And what we're trying to do here is crowdsource a project within a crowdsourced project. So we've already got Wikipedia, which is crowdsourced, but it's not steered. What we were trying to do is to work out how to steer it, how to create effort in particular areas. And here we were trying to create effort in museums. And a year ago, we invited over an Australian guy called Liam Wyatt. He'd managed to blag his way into the British Museum. The British Museum had agreed, I don't know why, they must have been crazy that day, to agree to take a Wikipedian inside their organisation and to allow him to assist the staff and to bring Wikipedians into the British Museum in order to collaborate. And I was one of the people who actually got invited sucked into that subject. I've been a secret Wikipedian for some years, but I came out, I told people what my name was, I stood up and says, I am a Wikipedian, and they took me in. And because of that, I was so impressed with the work at the British Museum, I thought, I wonder what would happen if you did it at a smaller museum. Because when we went to the British Museum, it was a very impressive museum. And when we left it, it was a very impressive museum. We hadn't actually changed it. If you know what I mean, we hadn't actually changed the museum. So this is in my hometown, there's a little tiny museum here. It's got about 12 employees. You can see it. It's a standard type of museum. We've got 3,500 museums like this in the UK. This is just one of them. It looks after quite a small city. If you wander around it, we've got some fairly remarkable paintings by a guy called Joseph Wright, but most of the other stuff is basically what most of the museums across the world have got. If I look at the article, though, on Derby Museum, we were doing quite well. The Wikipedia article was pretty good. We'd got a photograph of the library next door, but what we wanted to do, we wanted to write the labels inside the museum. We said to them, will you allow us to write the labels inside the museum? And they said, no way, that's what the curators do. You need to go on a 2-week course to be able to write labels. It's a hard job. You need to have spent a year learning librarianship and curatorial skills before you can write these skills. But again, we managed to convince them with a bit of technology. We said, can we put QR codes by the exhibits? And they said, yes, you can put QR codes because we don't really understand what they are. But we'll try it in a particular area. So we put some QR codes in one particular area, and they thought they looked quite nice. And a few people did come around with smartphones, and they could click on them, and it would take them to the Wikipedia article. And we were very impressed, because suddenly we turned the museum inside out. Because people were actually able to write stuff from outside the museum, go into the museum, click on it, and get information that had come from outside the museum. Suddenly we'd actually managed to change the barrier between what was inside and what was outside the museum. And we were very impressed. And then we thought, wouldn't it be nice if we could do different languages? If we could have a French QR code and an English QR code and a German QR code and an Italian. Oh, this is going to... You can see the problem here. We have got an awful lot of QR codes. So we were talking on the web, and I met a guy, and we managed to work out a way of making a QR code speak every language. So one QR code, you click on it, it senses what language your phone speaks, because you've got it set to Swedish or Italian or the language, whatever you prefer. It senses that, and without an app, you click on the QR code, and it clicks the Wikipedia article, and it gives you the Wikipedia article in your language. And we were quite impressed with that, because suddenly we took all the QR codes out that we've currently installed, put brand new ones in. We built a little website to do all the twisting from the fact that you've got an Italian and a French person both looking at the same QR code, and it does the trick of supplying the right language to the right person. Okay, so I've told you how that works. Let's just This is just so you can see how good I am at PowerPoint. It's taken me 10 years to learn this out. You click on the thing and it just takes you to the Japanese article. So it just clicks automatically. It knows what language you want and then clicks it. But we've got a problem. Now we've really got a problem because we had English labels. How are we going to find the French labels, the German labels, the Japanese labels, the Italian? This is a big problem. What we did was we put a crowdsourcing project on the internet. We wrote on 141 different Wikipedias in English, would you help us with this project and would you translate this message into the language that you've just seen it in? So if we write it on the Norwegian wiki, it says please translate this into Norwegian. And people did that. And we had people writing articles. They not only wrote articles on the museum, they wrote articles on nearby bridges and churches and archaeological sites. They wrote about paintings that weren't even in the museum. They wrote about paintings that were in the store. We had an awful lot of articles. Suddenly we got a lot of interest in this particular small museum. More interest probably than it's seen in visitors in some years. We got ourselves on the front page of the Wikipedias. Here we got on the English Wikipedia, on the French Wikipedia, on the Russian Wikipedia. We're on the front page. It's more hits than the museum or the library gets. It's fulfilling our mission and the museum's mission to educate and share knowledge, and it raises interest in the culture of that particular museum. I'll show you an example of that. This is a painting. I don't suppose anybody in the room has ever seen this painting. It's by Benjamin West. You have? Excellent. Oh, okay. It's a painting by Benjamin West. It's allegedly of a British war hero. He's actually a bit naughtier than that. Protecting a French guy from getting killed by a Native American. It was written in French. So somebody in France decided to write an article about this because we were running this competition. We then translated it into English, put it on the front page. 14,000 people saw it in 6 hours. We then translated it into Russian, or a Russian person did, and put it on the Russian front page, and 53,000 people read about a painting in a small museum in the middle of England. And that's suddenly kind of, wow, that's suddenly joining audiences together, cultures, languages. It's quite impressive, I think. This is how many articles we wrote. 1,250 Wikipedia articles were written. They were written in, I don't know if you can see this, they were written in coming around here, going around in this way. They're written in the languages of Russian, Catalan, Indonesian, Belarusian, Italian, English, Finnish, French, Esperanto, Belarusian, Japanese, and then going down to small languages. People don't realise that maybe that you see Wikipedia as English, but we have 2 types of Cossack. And we have got 2 types of Cossack language written about this small museum in the middle of Derby. It's quite obscure languages. But suddenly the Esperanto Society of Britain has got 1 museum in the country where they can wander around and click on everything and read about it in Esperanto. And that's what they enjoy doing, so it's a good thing to be able to support them doing it. Who wrote them all? Hardly anybody in Britain. There's about 2 or 3 people wrote a few articles in Britain. What we managed to find was we got articles written all the way across the world. From Brazil we got the Portuguese articles. From Mexico we got the Spanish articles. All we did was we offered some points. We offered 1 point for a small article and 4 points for a slightly larger article. And that was enough to drive people. And the prize was £50. And 5 people got prizes in different languages. The winning person was from Russia. The second person was from Indonesian. The third person was from Czech Republic. And the other, I can't remember the other ones. But anyway, they're all... So we ended up with the Mayor of Derby sitting there, first time in his life, doing a web stream, giving out prizes to people he'd never even met. on the internet so that you could give these prizes and work it out. So, this is very much like the Wiki Loves Monuments map. We've actually managed to cover the same area, but using just UK stuff. What we're planning to do is how we're going to move this on. The technique of doing these QR codes went viral last week. We were in the New York Times and we were in the Spanish television, etc. It's quite an interesting subject for museums. And we're wondering how we're going to do this. We're thinking about choosing a Russian museum next time because the Russian winner was there and it'd be a good reason to shift the drive. The other thing we're doing is the fact that we talked about Wikipedians in residence. We had 1 Wikipedian in residence last year. We've got about 12 this year. We expect to have 100 next year. We expect to have about 1,000 within 5 years. We think this is a way we want to go to collaborate with museums. For Europeana, it's not there. All that data that we've raised on that museum isn't in your Europeana data. It won't be assimilated by the aggregators because probably the best data now on that one small museum is on Wikipedia rather than in their own records, because we've probably got better data than the library itself has managed to get. And what we've managed to do is actually change the way the museum operates. When we first arrived there, they wouldn't allow people with mobile phones in. They now allow people in to take photographs. They're collaborating. We're hoping one day that they'll actually go to CC0 and actually release all their images and realise that the small amount of money that they make out of copyright isn't really worth the amount of trouble they put in to protect it. They need to think about turning their museum inside out. Thank you very much.